Welcome to Familiar Territory, an anime podcast hosted by two white dudes who've been friends for over 15 years. Here we talk about the history and influence of anime, as well as review anime new and old. So grab your talking cap and transform into some comfy clothes as we step into a familiar territory. My name is Grant.
And I'm Brantley. Heads up, spoilers on the way. Check the description, see if you're safe to listen.
Fuck.
Fuck?
Brantley.
Yeah?
I forgot how to start a podcast episode. It's been so long, dude.
Wait, are you fucking with me, or are you like, is this the bit you told me you had prepared?
Nah, man, I just forgot what it meant to start a podcast episode. It's been 4 months! It's been a while.
Yeah.
But here we are. Watching anime takes a lot out of us. There's a lot of anime to watch.
And not all of it is things we review.
So we've been sort of on the back burner, just kind of waiting. And now we're back. We watched an anime.
Yeah, we watched Granbelm.
Granbelm Fantasy.
No. You know, do you ever have, like, a piece of media and it scratches this itch that you didn't know that you had?
Yeah.
Okay. Granbelm is like the opposite of whatever that is. It's like, you and I were watching it, and I'm like, this should scratch an itch that I didn't know I had. There should be an itch there.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for the satisfaction. And it's not quite happening. And then we go on further and further, and eventually it's like, oh, okay, I think maybe I might be itching for this. Now, Granbelm, can you scratch it? And it just doesn't happen.
And it doesn't happen.
You ever have, like, an itch that feels, like, deep sort of under your skin? Like in your finger, or, like, sort of at your wrist? And, like, you can't, like, it doesn't help, like, scratching or gnawing or like, pinching or patting or cooling. Nothing works, right? It's just, like, it's like there's something in there, and I don't know what this itch responds to. I eventually got that, but that was as much as I got. And Granbelm still didn't exactly help.
Yeah, I kind of felt like it was trying to do something. It was trying to be something interesting and deep and unique. And instead, it was fine. It was all over the place. But you know what? It worked in a way that I think not a lot of other shows could do. And I kind of wish that it would have had just like a little bit longer in the microwave. Like, It's like a little bit longer in the microwave.
Yeah. I do find it's kind of, this one's an interesting case where there are certain things where, like, yeah, we appreciate this, we can see what they're going for. And yet it's just, something feels kind of incomplete. This one's going to be a weird one for us to review. And I'm not sure exactly how granular we can really get with it. It sometimes feels like watching this is sort of, you're doing it through, like, a pane of foggy glass. It almost doesn't feel like you're exactly watching anything. At least that's what I felt like. It felt almost like I wasn't watching the show. I was at someone else's place while they were watching it, and I was just having to glean, the whatever I could from it. It's like a third person watching experience. Is that anything?
Yeah, it kind of feels like this was on while you were waiting for your car to get done at the mechanic, and the mechanic just happened to like Magical Girl anime, and so he just put this on. And, like, you occasionally look up to stare at what's going on, and then you go back to your phone, and, like, you go back up, and you're, like, watching it, you're feeling it. It's something that you're intrigued by. but you got your brakes checked at episode 2, and your car's ready by episode 4, and you are just ready to leave. Yeah. And so you think about it, but it doesn't really stick to you, and that's it's kind of the best way that I can put it.
Yeah, and you're picking up on things that you feel like were supposed to be sort of secret coveted, like, they're using these big words, and you're like, oh no, I think I know what they're going for, despite the fact that you also feel like you've just been dropped into something incredibly sort of absorbed in its own self-image and vocabulary, and you walk away from it feeling like, am I getting more of this than they think I should be?
Yeah.
And then you drive home in your repaired car, and have a big hole in your pocket because of it. Hey Grant, what tangent? What would oh jeez, I realize this is gonna sound like it's a setup for a joke, but it's not. I'm just prompting. What magical girl show would they run at a car repair shop? At this point, we're just doing hypotheticals up front, I guess. Fuck it, we're back in action. We can do whatever we want.
Fuck you. Precure.
Precure?
Yeah, because it's the only one that's on Netflix. But it would be the dub. It would be Glitter Force.
Oh yeah, I was like, they don't dub this. This doesn't even have a dub. I don't think.
No. Why would it?
At least not that I saw on the completely legitimate website that I was checking before we started. I feel like a lot of magical girl stuff does not get dubbed. We're lucky it gets subbed, I guess.
Yeah. So let's talk about Granbelm. Granbelm is a magical girl show about 7 girls in a battle royale situation where they are competing to be the next big mage. Magic is not really a part of the world anymore, but the wizards that sit in their castle will give it to the person who can win the Granbelm Fantasy, which is a tournament. And so the cool thing about this is that it is a magical girl anime, and when they transform, they become like puppeteers, and their puppets are giant robots. So that's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
The robots are really stubby, which I think is really cute.
We discussed they have a Metabots quality to them.
Yeah, they're short, they're stocky, and they're kind of fun. They have some goofy looks, but I'm a big fan. So you have these girls, and every month on the blood moon, which is wild that there is a blood moon every month, but hey, that's just how fantasy works. They get transported to a magical realm where they have to fight. Now, you don't need to die to lose. If your mech gets destroyed and you live, you're fine. You live, you just can no longer participate. And we see that in the first episode. But so the premise is the main character, Mangetsu Kohinata, gets pulled in on this blood moon by complete accident. And she's watching these people fight in these mechs, and she's trying to get away, and she's trying to survive, and she meets her Shingetsu Ernesta Fukami, who is wanting to win the Granbelm so that she may rid the world of magic. Which is fine. She wants to do it because she thinks that magic creates a world in which some people are have an unfair advantage over others, and her best friend, who is also a Granbelm participant, Anna Fuego, is
not Fuego, not quite.
It looks like it. Fugo.
It makes sense because she's got sort of the fiery thing going on, but
yeah.
but not yet. Ana Fugo.
So, like, her best friend kind of left her because Shingetsu was sort of a surrogate daughter or a surrogate sister in this situation, and because she wasn't as powerful as a wizard, or vice versa, she was a more powerful wizard than Ana was, she kind of got kicked out of her life, and so she has a hatred for magic. So Shingetsu pulls Mangetsu under her wing so that she can teach her how to do the Granbelm. And after that, the story gets weirdly complicated. So other shows that do this tournament arc thing sometimes have not enough happening, where you'll have a couple episodes where nothing happens, and you're just wondering, man, why is this not happening? Why are we focused on this? And then when you finally get it, it kind of feels like, oh, finally, we're gonna see some fights. This show constantly only does fights. It is every episode, you're gonna watch people fight, you're gonna watch people get in robots, and you're gonna get a couple backstory elements, but it's not nearly as important as the fights. If you asked me anything about these characters other than what they do in Granbelm, I would be able to tell you so very little.
It's a lot of relying on sort of their archetypical personalities, particularly because a lot of the I don't know if a lot is fair to say, but like a decent amount of character interactions that are outside of the Granbelm fights are strategy meetings about those fights. And so when they're not fighting, they're talking about fighting, and again, it's not like there isn't stuff that happens. One of Grant his favorite recurring bits is about how Mangetsu is very good at cooking perfectly mediocre food that everyone just thinks is okay. So stuff like that does happen, but I think it's in relatively short supply for this kind of show, and the kind of impression it puts off with its aesthetic and especially with its I would say leading staff, kind of what they've worked on before. But anyways, it's perceptually it feels like sort of the character interaction slice of life aspect is minimal in impact compared to the like go of like plot centric fights and idealism.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the characters while we kind of go into the plot of this and go over the overarching themes. So you do have Shingetsu or Nesta Fukami, who I hate doing this, but she's kind of Homura adjacent. I know that comparing magical girl animes to Madoka Magica is like the most man thing that people can do, where it's like,
but look, they're not making it easy on us here. Let's be honest.
Like she is a long, dark-haired, competent person who thinks the status quo and the world that they live in is so unjust that she just has to dismantle it. And she's doing it for her pink-haired friend that she also has a undertone love interest for. She's different enough. I do like that she's kind of a klutz. When she first goes into school, she wears a elementary school backpack, and when she does her bow, everything falls out, and it's kind of funny. Mm-hmm. She has some good moments with how she treats other people. Her relationship with Ana is fun. You find out that she's actually like a super powerful wizard, even not in the Granbelm realm, and can ignite things on fire, and has been doing that to help Ana seem more powerful. And she's fine. She's fine. Mm-hmm. Her Granbelm is like a little black cat looking thing, and she sort of has an Anubis motif to her, which is neat, but I kind of wish they would have made her Egyptian instead of Japanese German. Mm-hmm.
I agree
but
with that.
like,
It feels like there were two different good design ideas here, and instead of picking one, they kind of fused them, and they don't make sense together. Which remind me to let's come back to that, because I feel like that's a repeating sort of feeling.
Mangetsu is your pink-haired magical girl lead. She's happy. She wants everyone to be friends. She's fine. She's kind of boring in how she reacts. She doesn't break the mold at all. She's fine. But she is the main character. Her mecha is pretty Gundam inspired, I'd say. It has the mouthpiece with the big eyes and the large spiky headdress. But it also has two little, like, Gatling guns near the eyes that make it look like a frog that I kind of like. Mm-hmm. I think that's really cute.
Yeah.
But, like, even, you know, she's doesn't have any particular talents, is super ordinary, blah, 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 the thing that everyone is.
Mm-hmm. I do think that she comes into her own later when things are revealed about her character, and she starts to sort of speak for herself in a way that's less typical, you know. But again, it's pretty hard to get away from the Madoka comparison in the sense of, like, you know, she's sort of a wistful, lackadaisical person who is swept into a more melancholic understanding of life, and eventually starts to sort of take a position on things while she's sort of being radicalized through all this. But at the core of it, what she kind of brings to the table is this, like, unconditional love and, like, sense of peace, you know, like, not necessarily just like, oh, everyone stop fighting, but more in the sense of, like, there's an inner calm that she can find that other characters don't get to so easily, especially when they're all wrapped up in becoming the Princep and, you know, winning Granbelm.
Yeah. Then you have Kuon Tsuchi Mikado, who is, like, a young middle school girl, and she has a older sister who was part of the Granbelm tournaments in the past, who's in a coma. So she wants to win so that she can help her older sister. She's fine. She has this traditional Japanese thing going on with her. She doesn't become super important until later, so at the beginning she's kind of just like a whatever character. She's the pilot that is super. She's the Dai Banana of the show, where she's sort of the sneaky best fighter that you don't really see. Mm-hmm. You have Sushio Hakamada, who is this blue-haired woman, and she helps Anna to win Granbelm, and Anna is also helped by Rosa. Rosa is the daughter of a minor wizard family that is hired by Anna to help her win Granbelm. She exists only to get out in the first round. She loses, and that's it. She exists to lose. And then there is Nene Rin, who is an adult woman who looks like a middle schooler, and they put her in middle school for it. It doesn't make any sense. It's kind of silly. It's like a very convoluted way to make a joke.
I'm going to be extremely honest with you right now, at potentially the sake of my credibility. I didn't realize that was a thing in this show.
Yeah, that's why she constantly tells people, like, you need to get me out of middle school. I am not a middle schooler. And they're like, her sisters who are younger than her are like, oh, but it's so fucking funny.
I somehow completely blanked on that being like, I never even registered that was happening. I must have been like, perhaps I was just like zoning out, thinking like, oh, they're just talking and having fun. Wow, that doesn't look good for me now, does it?
No, it doesn't. The thing is like that she's kept her like child body is because of the way she participates in Granbelm, and that's why at the end, once magic is removed, she's an adult. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
But that's why. That's why. So yeah, those are your characters, and we'll talk a little bit more about what they do in terms of impact to the story as we go on. But those are the only ones that really matter. Mangatsu has a little sister named Kibo, and Anna has a little sister named Claire, and that's kind of the only other characters that matter. So let's talk a little bit about the plot of the show. So episodes 1 through 2 sort of establish the world we're in, what the stakes are, and the factions that are at play. So Shingetsu and Mangetsu kind of are working together. Kuon's kind of off by herself. Suisho, Anna, and Rosa sort of have their own elite group. And then Nene is sort of a tactical character. Her big old robot is a sort of stealth. It hangs out in the background, and she's taking data about what's happening. That's sort of what she's doing from the get-go. And she uses her sisters outside to determine what is going on. Once, I can't remember exactly why they decided to target her over anyone else in that episode, but she's the second person to get knocked out. But even though she's knocked out, she has Mangetsu continue to send her data on the Granbelm to see what is happening. And then after that, we get into the plot of why Shingetsu is fighting. So once again, Shingetsu has the way you fight is you're given magic stones, and these magic stones are given by wizard families to participate in Granbelm. I don't think we are ever given a reason as to why it's all girls. Girls, right? And so Anna was given the smallest stone to participate in Granbelm, and she's pissed off at it. So she steals her family's magic stone to try and kill Shingetsu, and then Shingetsu actually kills her within the... Well, Shingetsu doesn't kill her. The magic stone consumes her, and she dies. Now, the reason that this is important is because A, it's our first character death. Anna dies during the combat. And B, everyone outside of the Granbelm tournament cannot remember her. She has ceased to exist. And the Shingetsu and Mangetsu kind of talk to Nene about this to figure out what the fuck is happening. And we're not really told why it's happening. It's just sort of the stakes that come with being a mage. I wasn't a big fan of this revelation, personally. What do you think about it?
The whole Anna situation to me is sort of hampered by the pacing of it. I think that any kind of emotional reaction is difficult for me to have when we see the writing on the wall for this whole situation, and then we kind of run in place with it. And so with that and anything after, like the character reactions to Anna and her kind of phasing out of existence, It I don't know, it just kind of struck me as, okay, they're finally getting there. um it the show seems to sort of like oscillate back and forth between being heavily cryptic and then incredibly straightforward, and most of the time you can pick up on what they're getting at with the cryptic parts, but they will eventually come out and say it anyways just to make sure you got it. Which also continually looks bad with me missing some details earlier. But I think that's one of the reasons why it's had a hard time holding my attention, is because sometimes it's just like, oh, okay, I get it. And then they continue to tread out that point for like another 2 episodes.
Right.
So yeah, in terms of impact, pretty lukewarm on that.
Yeah, it wasn't great. And then we get another episode where Kuon, the girl that's fighting for her sister to be like taken out of a coma, talks about what it means to be a mage, and what risks you take. So you find out all the problems of participating in Granbelm, how it is inherently problematic when it comes to the participants. We also get some weird, goofy Yuri shit. I don't know, but you find out if you exit Granbelm while you're unconscious or without having an understanding of where you're gonna go, you exit naked, which is weird. It's a stupid rule.
One of these little like errant vestigial parts of the plot that's kind of, oh, okay, that's there.
But it happens more than once.
Right. It's like it has enough frequency such that it's not just a one-off thing. But it also doesn't have any meaningful stake or effect on the plot, and it's not anything that anyone considers strategically. It just so happens that like it either is convenient for a character moment or convenient for sort of a plot setup to put someone in the right place at the right time. So yeah, it is one of these little like out of place sort of extensions of the show attempting to build a rule set for itself.
Yeah, it's not great, and the fact that they are like, oh, we have to really talk about it. And in this time, we also get a little bit of some doubt being put on the older Granbelm participant, the blue-haired girl, Suisho, who helped Anna try and rise to be the tournament. What the fuck are you doing? Sorry, my it's been a while. So
guest star.
I have 2 cats. One's name is 808 after the robot from Hi-Fi Rush, and the other one's name is Helicopter, and she is very, very silly, and she wants to get under my computer to play with the cords. But we start to understand. Gotta get her off. Suisho is something else. Her aura is strong. She is constantly winning, and she doesn't even seem to be trying. So Nene starts to try and analyze her, as to figure out what she is. And she doesn't really have a mage family, so they can't really figure out what her purpose is. And they're just like, hey, who is this woman? And she kind of toys with Mangetsu, like, why are you even fighting with Shingetsu? She also kisses Kuon, the other girl, because it turns out that she's the one that put Kuon's sister in the coma, and she's like has part of her memories in there, but I don't know. It seemed kind of weirdly, toxic Yuri, but not in a way that like is interesting.
It's another one of these weird little like magic system extensions where they're like, oh, there's kind of a way to like psychically pass a memory from, in this case, Suisho to Kuon, and then they're giving it that kind of cosmetic flavor through the kiss, and it's like, okay, so we have like contact sharing sort of, but how important is that to the overall understanding of like what magic can do and why it's important in this world? Because only those two kind of really make the most of that. They have kind of a like a psychic connection thing going on, but then it's like, if this doesn't really affect, like, say, Mangetsu and Shingetsu in that way, then kind of what's the point? Could this have been a regular conversation? Is it better for being done this way? I don't know. Like, kind of depends on personal taste, because it ultimately doesn't... It could be removed and not necessarily obstruct how the plot and the world make sense together. Lots of things like that in this show. These little elements and modules that don't necessarily need each other, and so it's hard to take an opinion on them. You could go with them or without them, and like, without them, the show might not functionally change for you much. With them, maybe it means something to you. I don't know, but it really kind of just depends on your preferences. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's also the fact that is literally the only kiss in the entire show, and it's just like that, and so it feels kind of lame.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of it, but whatever. And at the end of this episode, we find out that Mangetsu is not a real person, but she's a doll created by Shingetsu to fill the void of loneliness. That was kind of the big plot twist of this show.
It happens like halfway through.
A little bit more. It happened in episode 9.
Yeah.
So you have about a fourth of it. And it also, Kuon dies as well in this one. She's killed by Suisho. And then Kuon's sister awakens from her sleep. And we get a little bit of some waxing philosophy on like what it means to be a person, what it means to be your own person, and it's fine. It's not like it's not the best way that has ever been done in a show.
Mm-hmm.
It's just also not great, and so it's like, it's whatever. I'm not a big... It's like doing the artificial person storyline is nothing unique. It's not even unique in the magical girls space. Do you have any examples of finding out you're an artificial human?
Well, not without spoilers.
That's fair. But like, it's been done. It's been done before. And you get a couple episodes where they're like, hey, we're going to try and keep you stable, Mangetsu, using magic, because if you run out of magic, you'll just turn into a doll. And Kuon's sister talks to her, and she's like, hey, I don't really know who you are, but like, I feel like I should talk to you. And you need to figure it out. And so Mangetsu tells Shingetsu, like, hey, I know you're worried about getting rid of magic, because if you get rid of magic, then I disappear. But, like, you should get rid of magic, because it fucking sucks. And they do the final fight between Shingetsu, Mangetsu, and Suisho, and we find out that Suisho is also a synthetic human that was created by the wizards in the High Palace to keep anyone from winning Granbelm, because they didn't want to grant any wishes, and so she is hella strong. And Kuon dies in episode 10, not episode 9. My bad.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. But it's like she's hella strong, and that she exists to keep this whole thing, to prevent this whole thing from winning. She exists to prove that humans can't be wizards. She defeats Mangetsu, kills Mangetsu, and then Shingetsu fights her and wins. And so Shingetsu gets to make the decision to erase magic, but if she does, then she'll be basically a phantom walking through the world forever, because that's what happens. And that happens. She wishes it, and then the show ends implying that Mangetsu got brought back to life, as everyone has a happy, fun time in the recreated world. But it is interesting because Kuon and Anna stay dead. They do not come back to life. That is a thing that happens. Mm-hmm. I remember when the ending happened, I was like, oh, that's pretty good. But I rewatched it before today, and it's fine. Mm-hmm. You know, it's one of those sad but happy endings that shows like these like to do, and I wasn't a big fan. What do you think about it?
The ending for me is almost weighed entirely on my thematic reading of it. And even that is something I'm not entirely confident in. It's like I can repair the ending into something that's much more interesting to me than it is on like a plot level. In terms of the plot, it's a sacrifice made for the good of equality. Fair enough.
Fair enough, yeah.
And even in that sacrifice, something lives on. You know, like in this case, we're gonna this is gonna spill a little into thematic reading of this, but the way I see it, Mangetsu is sort of an ideal that Shingetsu strives toward, much like Suisho is the Granbelm construct idealism of like what an authority over the world should be, what someone with power and determination kind of is. When it comes to Shingetsu giving up herself for things to become more equal than they were before, to eliminate magic from the equation, what carries on is still a part of her, right? Like, even though she's gone, part of her, Mangetsu, her creation, gets to live. And so I guess it's sort of sends the message that, like, even when someone acts in self-sacrifice or martyrdom, they aren't simply vanished from history. There's still, there's a trace of you that continues on, either in how people act and interact, or kind of in the, not an essence, I don't want to say essence, but something carries after you. And in a way, those ideals that you strove toward can live in their more pure form when you as the real form are not there. Gives it that larger than life sort of thing. In Shingetsu's place we have Mangetsu. And she, in her hopefulness, gets to sort of filled the space where Shingetsu used to be. That cool. I can make something of it. I don't know if that was intended. But if it was, cool. And if it wasn't, then whatever. I'll take it with me anyways. That's how interpretation is.
Yeah.
So I guess to bring it back around, sure, yeah, ending's great, good, fine, it's whatever.
Right.
It's all of those things at once.
That's kind of how Granbelm is as a show. It is a show that doesn't do anything particularly wrong, but it's not exciting in either way. It is a solid 7 out of 10. You won't really think about it too much afterwards, but you might remember it and be like, oh yeah, I remember that show.
Ironically, the ideal and excellent parts of it live on past it. The rest of it fades from memory, but the mangetsu of Granbelm lives on.
Ooh. 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 So overall themes.
Do you want to replace me with one of your cats as co-host? I won't be offended if you say yes.
They would suck ass as co-hosts. They can't do shit.
It's just you talking to yourself and occasionally a loud sound of something getting knocked over. Something, a small creature falling off of a surface.
I did give them food while you were talking about your thematic understanding of the ending. Mm-hmm. And I looked back, and there's just like a spike in noise, and I don't know what it was, but it definitely was that.
Alrighty.
But yeah, should you watch Granbelm? Sure, it's fun. It's cool. It's just not something that you're going. It's not memorable.
It's not something you can holistically recommend.
Yeah. If you're like, do I want to watch a magical girl show with robots? Sure. Are you going to get anything out of it? Probably not, but that's okay. You don't need to get something out of every show. It's not as fun to watch as bad shows either. But it's not the most mediocre show we've seen.
But at the same time, maybe it's going to be the most incredible thing you've ever seen because of one thing you really like. For example, the sound effects.
The sound effects of that show fucking rule. They're insane. Everything about that show is pretty mid, but the sound effect designer went balls to the wall hard. And I remember we looked into it, and it's a pretty popular dude.
Someone
right?
who wasn't it the Flip Flappers?
Yeah, it's Gene Akutagawa, who doesn't just do Flip Flappers. He does fucking everything. He is the anime sound designer.
But Flip Flappers is like the most adjacent, I think, in terms of like creative sound use. Things like we're gonna make this like this like barrier sort of generate around Mangetsu, and it's gonna sound like a sort of like a heavenly voice kind of like, but then it's like a Doppler effect on it, and like a beam passes past the screen, and so it like it's like whoa. It's so incredibly interesting. It and the mech design are like the standout parts of the show where you're like, whoa, I don't see that very often.
Yeah, the mech design was cool. It was cute.
Yeah, and so like it's one of these things where it's hard to say that Granbelm is not for anyone. It's not for everyone, but it could be for some people in particular. If you just like chilling out and watching some ridiculous robot fights where all the robots are wider than they are tall, then awesome. You found your show. If you are looking for something with a much more solid balance of slice of life elements and combat, then probably not this one. But also if you just are craving anything that resembles like a Madohomu relationship, then maybe this is the thing for you. hard to recommend because it's so disharmonious. Like, the different elements of the show don't tie together very well, in my opinion. Like, the internal logic only exists seemingly to create enough mystery that you don't know how everything works until the end. And in that sense, it just feels like it's sort of buying time for contrived plot reveals, where it's like, someone can kind of disappear from memory and existence only if they die, not if they just lose the fight. Okay, what does that mean for, everyone else here? Well, I mean, for Mangetsu, it doesn't mean so much because she's already a construct and starting to fade once this. Then you're like, well, okay, hold on. So that's another element. We have another rule on top of this, and you have all these these branching bits that kind of go their own direction and are meant to mean something, but they don't come back together at one central core. And so there's a lot of take it or leave it that you get with it. And so it's hard to recommend unless there's the one thing you really like out of it, in which case, cool, it's going to deliver that. Yeah, that's kind of my thought on it.
Yeah, I think one of the things about the show is there's no payoff. So, you don't have... You're like, oh, so if they die, they get forgotten. I wonder if there's a mage that died in the past that everyone forgot that's actually really important to the plot. No, there isn't.
Right.
The only mage that's died in the past is in a coma. Oh, you can eat souls. I wonder what that means. It means nothing. No one else can talk about it except for Suisho. Or you might have if you die, you get teleported to the place where you learned about it. But it's only used as a naked gag,
mm-hmm.
right? There is never all the stuff that they kind of put in never gets revealed. It's the J.J. Abrams mystery box. They created a mystery box and nothing was in it. And so it doesn't pay off.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot guess that Mangetsu is a artificial human, because that is never put in place. There is no foreshadowing to it.
That's partially because the way that reality gets shaped around her is that she has a reason for existing. She is although she's a figment of Shingetsu's sort of willpower and magic and whatever else, she also gets fabricated into an existing history where she belongs to this other family, such that Shingetsu and Mangetsu are not related. Reality has warped itself to make Mangetsu make sense as being a real person with a real background. And so as a result, you just really cannot predict it. And so it's giving up that potential, telegraphed surprise for one that is guaranteed, but with, as you said, kind of no substantial personal payoff that you can get from it.
Right. There's no real use in paying attention to the intricacies, because the intricacies aren't going to help you solve the mystery. Mm-hmm. Which is fine. If you're not interested in it, it's whatever. But they put it in place, and I feel like they kind of messed up.
It's sort of a backwards way of storytelling. We'll know for episodes and episodes that Anna's kind of overcompensating. By kind of, I mean basically entirely, and very visibly, that she's kind of, in this jobber position, and she's a little bit aware of it, but she desperately does not want to be aware of it. And you're like, okay, I get it. I kind of get where this is coming from. And eventually they will reveal that part of her insecurity about this is that she thinks she's more powerful because Shingetsu has been casting magic in her place. And so, she gave her an inflated idea of what she can do. And then she could never, get back to that level without Shingetsu.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, on a sort of semantic and conceptual level, this makes perfect sense and you can read it 100 miles away, right? Like, basically, as soon as you're introduced to Anna and how she acts when she interacts with Shingetsu, it's like, okay, yeah, like, it's a rivalry thing, and she's, a boastful person that also cannot get back what she thinks she has. Cool, like, I get it. But then the reveal is that there was a technical reason for that. And it's like, okay, this didn't need to be here, but I guess we have this now. You couldn't predict that Shingetsu had cast this one particular spell in place of Anna, and then fucked up her entire life as a result, because you didn't know that existed up until the point where they sort of play it out. But you all, at the same time, could have done the reading comprehension to understand why that matters. And so the plot revelation really doesn't mean much at all. It doesn't mean much that Shingetsu cast a spell in place of Anna and made Anna think all these things, because you can just get that same effect from them being siblings with a rivalry. Like, as soon as they say that Shingetsu has sort of left home, away from Anna and co, then it's like, oh, okay, I have all the answers I need, and I can glean that and understand it and interpret it. But then to take it a step further and say, also, here's this other thing that happened that you didn't know about, should know about now, will not matter in the future, and is only additional supporting information for what you already understood, just kind of feels tacked on and a little bit insulting to your ability to understand it all. I don't know.
Yeah. It paints itself as a mystery, but you can't solve it, so there's no real reason to care.
Yeah.
The lore it builds up doesn't matter, because everything is going to be written in a way that you don't need to know any previous lore. Lightning round of things I liked about this show. I liked the mech design. I liked the sound effects. Character design was fine. I liked some of the ways they did the battles. The battles were fun. Things I didn't like. Everything. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't like some of the character relationships, like Nene becoming like best friends with Mangetsu's younger sister because they're in the same class was wild to me. Because she's not a middle schooler. So why would she be friends? And she's supposed to be an adult woman. What? I have taught middle schoolers. They are kids. They're cool. It's fun to talk to them. But I wouldn't be like, I'm gonna hang out with this middle schooler because I want to. Even if we remove the social boundaries that you should set as a teacher, obviously, talking to middle schoolers is painful. You get like maybe 30 minutes of decent conversation, and you're like, all right, there's nothing more here.
What's up, bud? Getting into juice boxes lately? That's awesome. See you later.
and so it's one of the hard things to hard suspension of disbelief for that. That's kind of the biggest problem with this, is the character interactions are just nothing. It's almost nothing.
I will weigh this one thing in on the topic of the Yuri undertones. I'm going to read a quote from Gengen Kusano, who's a sci-fi author. I'm pulling this from an interview, notably with Iori Miyazawa. creator of Other Side Picnic. They're talking a lot about Yuri. This is an interview on Teletype. And let me get actually the name of the article for you to go look up. Is Yuri Made Me Human Part 2. And this is translated by Katie Lillian. And so I apologize, we won't put the link in the description because one time we did that and YouTube told us that it was bad and then hit us with a demerit on our account. Because YouTube's
they thought
bad.
we were spamming.
Yeah. But here's this quote. The fatal flaw of hard sci-fi is that it's not interesting to anyone except for fans of science fiction. Its main course are scientific explanations, and even though there are many different stories, in the end they always give way to walls of scientific text. But readers, except for sci-fi fans, barely feel any catharsis from that. Let's be honest. What's so interesting about having to read a long-ass explanatory info dump? That's why the sad reality is that hard sci-fi won't spread beyond the sci-fi fanbase. However, if you make that hard Yuri sci-fi, the scientific explanation segment becomes a scene of women having a conversation with each other. In other words, a Yuri scene, something that all of you love. And
so it's just essentially like if you add gay girls to it, people will watch it.
Yeah, that's about what I got from this.
Did we talk about this when we watched Gundam?
No, I don't think so. I think I've brought up the concept of Yuri Miyazawa's Yuri, like absence of Yuri. Editor's note: I got that flipped around. It's Yuri of absence. But I don't think I brought this quote into the equation back then, but it would have made a lot of sense there.
It is, I mean, gay girls saved Gundam, just like the gay boys saved Gundam first, and now it's the girls' turn.
Yeah. But anyways, it really is to say that I think if there's a part that Yuri has to play in it, it's in sort of warming up the intimacy of the character interactions, and at least making you think maybe there's something there. It's maybe the one thing that invites you to invest some thought into what the show's doing. And although, as Grant has mentioned, it doesn't really go anywhere, Yuri fans are incredibly used to that absence and making something of it anyways. So, it ends up playing a perfect little role in maybe livening up some people's experiences. Me. Yeah. So that's that on that. Grant, did you know this show has 3 producers?
That's a lot more producers than I think it should have. Who are the 3 producers?
So, the producers are, not in any particular order, Hiroshi Nakamura, who is assistant producer of the Black Rock Shooter OVA and producer for the Black Rock Shooter 2012 TV series.
That checks out. That makes.
Are you ready to say that exact same thing 2 more times?
Yeah.
Okay,
go.
So there was Takayuki Nagatani, who was the producer for Flip Flappers. And then there was Hiroshi Kami, who produced Hoseki no Kuni and Magical Girl Sight.
Oh my god. It all makes sense.
So
I
don't know why all 3 of them had to be involved with this, seeing as I don't think this was a large multimedia project or anything like that.
No, I think it's an anime original.
So,
I didn't get anything else.
So yeah, interesting.
They just really wanted to put their names on it.
I kind of wonder if maybe that... I don't want to conflate producer with director. Very different roles. But I wonder if perhaps there's the amount of disharmony that sort of happens in the show. Maybe I wonder if that has anything to do with having 3 producers.
It looks like the director of the show. The only other thing he has ever directed is the ReZero movies.
Yeah, that's something I noticed was like this director, Masaharu Watanabe, has mostly been an animation director or episode director. However, has directed, as you mentioned, with ReZero and with Wakaba Girl. And I am purely speculating because I've seen maybe like one episode of ReZero and none of Wakaba Girl. But I feel like if you put a midpoint between those shows, you kind of get Granbelm. You get like the sort of magic hidden rules fuckery that happens with ReZero, and you have the slice of life cuteness of Wakaba Girl, and they're not really entirely concentric with each other, but they do have an overlap. Oh, and also the color designer for the show also had worked on Wakaba Girl, so that's something that the color designer Naoto Tanaka and the director Watanabe have in common. So
the scriptwriter is an interesting one. Did you look at his work?
Was that Yuki Hanada?
Yeah.
Yuki Hanada. I'm surprised at what a huge ratio of like slice of life shoujo types of stuff.
Yeah, he did Chunibyo, and also Chobits. He did some script for like K-On!, but series composition, he did like Beyond the Boundary. He was a series composition for Beyond the Boundary.
That's the one that feels very close to this show.
Yes.
This show doesn't quite have the Kyoto animation charm, but... and
Love Live, like all of them.
Yeah, so it feels like much like this. So many things of this, like, yeah, that's a perfectly good choice to for doing script and series composition for this show. Also, is it though? Is it the best person? Maybe it's that Granbelm concept can't really have a perfect scriptwriter for it because it's a little too many things, or it's things that don't coagulate well enough into one sort of like uniform jelly. I don't know.
Yeah, Granbelm needed to get someone who was there to write Granbelm. You needed someone who was like, I need to write this fucking show. You didn't need someone who was like, I need to write a show that is like a show I've written. You needed someone who was gonna come up to the bat and be like, I have to write Granbelm.
You need the wish upon the Pleiades hard commit.
Yes, and there was no hard commit. There's not. That is okay. Do you want to talk about themes?
Yeah, sure. Something that really occurred to me during our talk of this, I had kind of mentioned it before, is that ideals sort of being manifested as people, and then sort of, you're striving towards that, but it's something you can never quite achieve. With Suisho, it's mentioned that, like, she is the long-running princeps that everyone, works hard to get close to defeating, but somehow at the end they falter every time. And I think that is sort of representative of, like, our interactions with ideals, where, we struggle and we struggle in order to achieve them. And then we have to question, what would the world be if it was in a different state? Let's say that we do the big one. In this case, we get rid of magic. What then? Can we actually give that up? And in that moment of hesitation, then, perhaps things collapse. Whether it's a perceived, like, lack of, authority or a slip in charisma, that changes the tide of a movement, or if it's simply that, what the ideal seemed like it was, both, we're getting closer and closer, but it's also infinitely sort of far away. Almost like the moon, where it's like, we know that there is a way to get there, but you as a singular human being could never just on your own hard work be able to jump the distance from here to there.
Fuck you. I'm gonna do it.
something Blood
Watch
Moon, because
me.
that's in the show.
Yes.
But when it comes to like the characters sort of being something more than just characters, that's kind of something I've been reading out of this.
Yeah.
And there are people who will theorize kind of like, what happens when we stop fighting? Like, does the world end by, like, if everything was utopian levels of peacefulness, and there weren't problems anymore, then, like, is that even reality? And that's maybe something that Suisho is defending. You should not get rid of magic. You should not win the title of Princeps away from me, because without it, your world ends, right? If you get everything you ever could have wanted in the form of your wish, then, what is life to you even anymore? If you find yourself an inner peace or an external victorious peace, then what is left of life? And I think about that. When it comes to Shingetsu making that final decision, I feel like what she's giving up is her and anyone else's authority to try to sway the course of history and reality, and instead to put it back in a position of struggle, like when she asks there to no longer be magic, it's not as if she's guaranteeing peace. There's an initial part of that, in that, Granbelm is no longer implicating people into violence. Of course, they still live in the real world where, lots and lots of people live there, and there's pre-existing geopolitical conflict that certainly exists outside of the show, and there's normative structures that need appending, and there's or that need work, and there's going to be societal and individual issues that need to get handled. But for what Shingetsu does, it's removing that sort of, in this case, literally magic authority to have a say in that, right? That it has to, from now on, be people involving themselves in it. And who carries that on beyond her but Mangetsu? Someone who has seemingly been sort of this bright side of her. I think that's interesting. I definitely, when I've thought through that side of it, or at least attempted to sort of, again, repair the show into having a message like that, then I like it a lot more. And up until that point, I was feeling very disinterested in what the show was presenting. So hopefully anyone else who decides to watch it, may you also find something to carry with you from it. Because I do think it's trying to say something. I just don't know if it's saying what I think it's saying. Not that matters. Do you have any thoughts on themes? Any other takeaways that you want to mention before we get into our last little thing here?
That you're allowed to torture someone as long as it's funny. They're like, hey, I'm a 26-year-old woman and I don't want to go back to middle school.
Dude, you just described my everlasting beef with the fucking tickle monster.
They're just like, oh, but it's hilarious.
Sick of that. That dude's fucking excuses. I say, don't tickle me. I say, don't do that. I hate that. The tickle monster says, you know what he says.
You're laughing, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. It's funny. It's funny.
It's funny. A goof and a gaff can go a long way.
Dude, fuck that guy. Do you think we could take part in some kind of magical tournament and erase him from existence?
The Tickle Monster?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we should do that. I think that we should become the next princeps and rule over the world with the authority of magic.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have any hypotheticals?
I don't exactly have a hypothetical, but I have something else that's hopefully more fun than that.
Okay.
So, Grant, you're going to have to take a look over to your Discord for a moment.
It's already up.
Cool. Keep an eye on it, because I'm going to send you something as a little visual reference and reminder of kind of where we've been before and what we've done. What I'm sending to Grant is our last tier list we did that covered shows from episodes 25 to 45 of the Familiar Territory podcast. Grant, what I want you to do is tell me the exact single increment of a show that did it better and worse than Granbelm.
You're just making me put Granbelm on the tier list before.
No, but these things, like, for example, presentation might, it might be stronger in that than in its writing, and so therefore we're not exactly placing it. And again, I want you to just find, like, for example, maybe there's a B tier show that has a much worse plot that is still just one step above Granbelm. So, like, relate those qualities. What is the thing that's just one step above Granbelm? Let's start with writing. How about that? Okay, we'll make it easy.
One step above Granbelm in writing,
but only one step. The only thing that's the one step above it that we've
probably Wish Upon the Pleiades. I mean, that's just one step.
Yeah, Pleiades has that, like, sort of non-commitment to its plot, where it's like, at the end of the day, we can be kind of fuzzy with the rules, because, it means this is a car commercial of an anime. But at the same time, it does kind of try to bring it to some bombastic conclusion. And I think it's a little steadier than Granbelm. So I agree with you on that. How about one notch worse?
Well, wouldn't that be Futari wa Precure?
I'll kill you.
Well, if you are talking about writing one notch worse, I get it. The tier list is not exactly only writing. I would say one step worse would probably be Tacked Up.
Ooh. Yeah.
Where it has the same non-committal writing, it has the same like intense love for this world that it's trying to create, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And Tacked Up is just a little worse.
Yeah. It lacks the conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that's good. How about the presentation? This becomes a little different because we really liked the mech designs, the sound effects, and some of the acting I thought was noticeable and significant in its own way.
I think one notch above presentation would probably be Flip Flappers.
Oh, but I would argue Flip Flappers is leagues above.
Okay, yeah.
There has to be something that's closer.
Probably the first season of Yuki Yuna.
Ooh. Yeah.
where you have some really interesting things happening, and it's kind of cool, and you kind of like what's going on, but it's nothing to really write home about. Like Yuki Yuna, first season had some really I like the girls' outfits, I like their weapons, the monster design can be a little bit desired, the acting's fun, and so Yuki Yuna's just slightly better.
Yeah, it's not very cohesive, but the kind of blow for blow, the I think Yuki Yuna has more things that just barely inch out as being a little more interesting. I think that the mechs in this show are much more interesting than anything in Yuki Yuna. But Yuki Yuna has more consistency in its artistic production and conceptualization of some of the weirdo things they have in there.
Yeah.
How about one notch below in presentation?
One notch below in presentation. See, it is hard because, we do have, what's the one environmental show?
Oh, Earth Maiden Arjuna?
Earth Maiden Arjuna is fucking insane. The presentation in that show is nuts butts good. But it's real low on the list.
Yeah, so just try to focus on just the production quality of it,
Yeah.
When we're thinking of, here's a show that, is not super memorable, but has some incredibly iconic things in it. And something just a little bit worse than that. Bland overall aesthetic, but some things that you're like, whoa, how did this get in this show?
Probably Wish Upon Please.
Yeah, that's fair.
Where it's damn, that's a lot of wild shit. But most of it's kind of boring.
Mm-hmm. I almost said Magia Record, where it's you have
Magia Record has some fucking Magia Record, especially the first season, has some insane fight scenes and some insane choreography.
Yeah, I guess it's not really comparable. I was thinking of the witch forms and stuff, and how those kind of have there's those standout moments, but you also get the regular composition of scenes is much more interesting, and it has a distinct style, which I feel like this show does not. So I guess that would be far and above it. Yeah. We'll take Pleiades is our sort of interesting blow for blow with this.
Yeah, because this show reminds me the most of Wish Upon the Pleiades.
Yeah. And now we'll forget about it. But not Pleiades somehow. Alright, do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I think I'm good. Fuck, I did have something to say, I think. Whatever. I can't remember. Who gives a shit? I'm not gonna call out what we're gonna do next.
You'll have to find out, because this definitely was not the Scott Pilgrim episode we had planned.
Yeah, we wanted to do the Scott Pilgrim episode, but
that was gonna be too much to bite off. I think
it will probably happen eventually, because there's some cool things I want to talk about it. But it requires us to reread graphic novels, to watch a movie, and probably rewatch the series again after we do that. I really want to talk about it, but
that'll be Grant's 4-hour episode.
Oh, it's gonna be nuts. So we're gonna do it. But if you want, you can check out our streams that we do on Twitch. We just did We just did a Mega Man 8 stream, which was probably my favorite stream we've ever done. gonna be real. It was so much fun.
And it will continue to be, because we're still going. So if you're hearing this
we're
relatively close to the time of recording, then congrats. Go look up the adjacent episodes that we're uploading as VODs to YouTube. And go enjoy.
They're fun.
Or watch us live if you get right on the money. And start listening right now.
Or you don't need to do any of that. Because we are not your dads.